Hello, and welcome to another episode of Letters from Camp. Today we are joined by Dan Soames. Dan was a camp director at Camp Winoxet. And so, Dan, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here, and I'm thrilled to be here as well.
So, as you know, you've seen other episodes. We like to start with kind of your camp story. So, let us know kind of when you first came to camp, how many years you worked there, what area you worked in, stuff like that.
All right. Well, geez, go way back to 1979 was my first year in camp as a camper with Troop One Berlin, and I think I mentioned the site we were in on one of the Facebook threads a number of weeks back. Old timers. It's where Macaulay Field is now. I think where the climbing tower stands now is an Adirondack. The one that I stayed in was right to the right of the trail, kind of near where those trailheads down towards Arrowhead and such go. And so in those Adirondacks, when that was nuked, as we like to say back in the day, it was called the Harley Berger Blast Zone, named for the scout executive at the time. Those Adirondacks got dispersed to those the closest to the campsites there, like Abenaki and Blackfoot, King Philip, and I think the other one ended up in Iroquois. Few years as a camper, then the opportunity came along to be a CIT. I can't remember if that was 82 or 83. About when I was old enough, and went into a number of years as a junior staff member and transitioned into some senior staff positions before I got married and everything, and got on with the first phase of my life. So, during that time, Scoutcraft, was a nature director for a year, was assistant aquatics director, waterfront director as well, and then program director was that nine? Yeah, that would have been 1990, I believe. And then a few years off, did the family thing, and then went back to school to get my teaching credentials. And my summers opened up, and was there as a camp director for about 4 years before I worked at Split Rock in the Cub operations, and eventually resident for a year.
Awesome. Um, you know, when I was a junior staff, or not junior staffer, but CIT and senior staffer, people would talk a lot about '86 and being the year of revival. And I know you were there then. What do you think? Was there anything unique about that year, or something like special about that year, that kind of gave it that kind of hallowed, legendary kind of status?
I think there were a few things. I mean, and we kind of hit rock bottom, I would say. 1984, I think, was the year that was our lowest attended year. Anytime I go into the dining hall, I go find our staff sign. It looks like a patrol sign. There's like 14 names there. And, Bob Spear and Steve Hoff and I were kind of there at that point, at kind of the lowest point, and into 1986. And I think there was a commitment from council to breathe some life back into the camp. The staffing levels were brought up, and I think just from I believe it was Jeff Bradbury. I'm mixing up my brothers. It's been a long time. His enthusiasm for bringing the camp back into to something we could be proud of, something more like what we remembered when we were kids. And we bought into it. It was an exciting time. It was a turning point. And I don't know where that staff sign is anymore, but that's where you start to see the number of staff members grow into what it's become today, which is just when I think about where we were in the early to mid '80s, it's pretty fantastic.
That's great. So you were a camp director for several years, and you've worked in, as you said, you're an educator. You've been a principal for many years. What are some of the similarities of those jobs?
It's funny. Just before we logged on, I was thinking about that, and I think one of the big things is, when you get to that that point in a camp's operation or a school's operation, one of the big things is you need to know enough about everything um, to be dangerous, I guess. But you can never be an expert. Uh, the ability to just have an intelligent conversation with somebody in the food side of the operation, then go talk to the maintenance folks, then go into something more programmatic or curriculum. Those things are all interchangeable between schools and camps. The idea that you're staffing in your transportation when that's part of the puzzle in Cub Day Camp in particular. That those are your two biggest line items in the budget. Those are common understandings, and those things in terms of knowledge base and just kind of approach to the work uh, were transferable between those two roles. I knew when I was a camp director that I'd eventually want to get into school administration in a public education setting. So, it was good experience, and I kind of went back to that experience as a camp director when I did finally get into administration a number of years later.
Were there kind of any specific lessons you took from your camp career into your career as an educator?
Uh, you know, I think one of the things that inspired me to become a school teacher to begin with was my experience at camp. Uh, you know, I did my undergraduate work at Bentley College before it was Bentley University. I had a business degree and realized pretty quickly, in my early to mid 20s, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And I thought about what meaningful work felt like, looked like, uh, you know, what kind of environment it was. And, just my time at camp helped to solidify that working with kids and helping kids grow and learn uh, was where it was at for me. So that was kind of the genesis of uh, the transition into education for me.
Yeah, I think, and just there are a lot of people in camp who do become educators, and I think probably 50% is because they really like education, and 50% is because they just want to find a way to keep working at camp.
Well, yeah, there's something to be said for that. I think that's true.
So anyone who knows you, and more recently knows you're a pretty avid runner. So how many marathons have you run at this point?
I tried to count up my marathon bibs today, and I think including the fake Boston, the year of the pandemic when they grabbed $80 of our money to run it in our backyard, um, I'm at 28.
Wow, wow. So we do have a race coming up at camp in August, the CWAA 5 miler. Is there anything you'd say is unique or special about that kind of 5 mile route running around Thorndike Pond?
The last time I ran that loop, one of the things that occurred to me is there are a number of kind of vantage points, perspectives, views of Thorndike Pond that you can take. There's certainly from the waterfront. If you've lived in one of the director's cabins, the plunk yourself on the porch and look out while a thunderstorm's going on. There's the view from the middle. There's the view from swimming to Sagey and back on Friday morning. But to have that kind of perimeter view and kind of a bird's eye view of places where you're looking down and back across the water was kind of cool to take in. And I'm looking forward to it again this year, where the plans are afoot to come back up and run it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so definitely for those watching, sign up for the race, and we'll have some other events going on that day too, which will be awesome. We want to get as many alumni back to camp that day as possible. August 26th, mark your calendars. So let's move into our lightning round, and so we have some standard questions we ask. So let's start off with what was your favorite camp skit?
Uh, no relation to you, I don't think, but J.C. Penney back in the day. I never had to be the kid at the end, so it worked.
Oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, oldie but a goodie, and probably frowned upon these days.
Yeah. How about your favorite camp meal?
Camp meal. I don't want to hear from anybody about Wednesday night. So yeah, I was fond of going up to the salad bar and making my peanut butter and jellies. That was good stuff. Um, you know, gosh, pasta night was always good too. Always enjoyed pasta night. Uh,
What's your favorite spot in camp or your favorite place in camp?
Um, there were times, and I think anybody that's worked at camp can relate to it. You just needed that kind of time to chill. Uh, and I always enjoy taking kind of a leisurely walk between the OA field, around the back by the Rangers Beach, past the chapel, maybe stop and, sit on a bench and then end up behind the amphitheater and down by the waterfront. Just a real quiet stretch of camp. And when I was there, the last 4 years I was there, is just sitting on the back porch after a day, and especially if the moon was out, just seeing that shining across the water was pretty cool too.
Also, very underrated is in the winter, that's a really cool view too from the back porch, looking out on the lake and when it's frozen and stuff. That's definitely impressive. uh,
Absolutely.
how about your favorite camp song?
Uh, and there's a story that goes along with this, but I'm going to go with Gary Owen. And I thought about this, and the reason I went with Gary Owen is, my first year in camp, uh, the ecology director, the nature director, his name was Arthur Polanski. And he had this big undertaking. He was building this rock wall, and he'd get up in the dining hall and yell about rocks and how he was collecting rocks. And he needed us to bring rocks to the nature den so he could build this rock wall. His song, uh, was Gary Owen, and he he was a very dramatic guy. He was a very impassioned guy, and when he did this song, he his performance, he put everything he had into it. And a number of years later, this it was one of the years I worked on the waterfront, um, that which would have been 87 or 89. Arthur came back to camp, and and it was funny. It was one of those days that one of those kind of gully washer thunderstorms came down off the hill, and we ended up putting a sheet of plastic on the hill right by the ad building, and everybody, it was a slip and slide thing, and everybody was there, and Arthur was there taking it all in. He was thrilled to see how everybody, the people from nature, scoutcraft, everybody was in this, including the bronze people, I think is what he called us. Uh, but he did Gary Owen for us while he was there, and Bob Spear and I asked him for the words to the song, and we wrote it down. And Bob and I used to like to do that song together a lot, and I'm pretty sure that's one that you've done, here and there as well. So that's that goes way back to the beginning too. Something that stuck with me over the years.
Yeah, I think for my money, that's the best song, like in terms of just getting the dining hall really going, and just the noise and enthusiasm. It's definitely at least top five for me. That's a good one. Um, and so the last question, which may be related to this, but who was your camp hero or staff member you looked up to as a kid?
Well, I think, just sticking with Arthur Polanski there, he was the first staff member that really made an impression on me. Because he was just goofy enough. He was enthusiastic enough. He was one of these people that was just larger than life in camp, and you go, wow, this must be where it's at because this guy's having a blast. Um, and so that's something that I think resonated with me as a kid. And, probably got me thinking about being a camp staffer. Uh, when that time came along too.
Yeah, and that's definitely a name I've heard. Obviously I never met him. I was a little a little too young for that, but it is cool, when generations kind of get bridged like that. So he had an impact on you, and you had an impact on younger staffers, and just so on and so on. And I think that is one of the things that makes camp so special is that, you create this network of people that you may not know personally, but you just have this connection to. Uh,
It's and I think that's, you use the word bridge, and I think that's a term that I thought of, you know, because how camp looked and felt when I got there versus when you did. I remember when a lot of guys, uh, in your age bracket were just coming into camp when I was a staff member and when you became CITs, and
mhm.
you know, there's all kinds of stories I can tell about you guys when you were younger that are pretty cool, and it's been, you know, as somebody who's a few years older than you all, see you continue on and continue to contribute. And, I know that that's getting passed down. So the bridges continue to happen. And I think that's just awesome. That's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Um, any final, kind of thoughts, closing remarks, anything that we kind of missed that you wanted to get in here?
Oh my gosh, I could probably sit here all night and tell stories, but people turn the video off. Um, you know, I, I'm looking forward to August and getting back up to camp, and seeing some of the familiar faces, you know, uh, maybe getting to meet some of the new people that have been in since. It's, oh gosh, it's been 30 something years since I've worked at camp, so it'll be great to be back up there. I get to visit every now and then, but you know, for the younger people that are watching, I probably don't need to tell you, just how special of a place this is, how impactful it is to so many people, and how important that the work that people are doing there now and that we've done in the past really is. It's life changing for a lot of people. So there it
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dan, for joining us. And to all our viewers, stay tuned for new episodes dropping monthly. And one of the things I'm excited about is that, during the summer, I hope to be interviewing some of the current staff members and people who are up at camp. So, a lot of these I've relied on my network of friends who may have been at camp in the past, but I'm really looking forward to interviewing people who are there now over the summer.
That'll be great to see.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan, and have a good night.
Thanks, Mike. Take it slow.